It's chapter 7. Mind of an Asiatic, homie. Yo. See, any other time, I wouldn't pay you any mind. Put my best foot forward in every verse and every line. I used to dream, I used to pray about the day that I get signed into the truth. About this business just blew my mind. I swear to God, I used to think all I needed was a skill. High verse, catchy hook, dope look, then get a deal. I used to love the rock a sold out show just for the thrill until the real was revealed to my spirit like Jabril. I'm iconic.
Yeah. All praise due to Allah, and honors to the last prophet in these days and times. That's Drew Ali, that's Drew Ali. 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 It ain't no question where these lessons are coming from. In North America, I'm still flexing, dancing to the drums. They going dumb like, bruh, we ain't think you come from out of heaven, throw up the 7, sliding through the slums. Go on over.
Peace to the gods. Wings spread wide, coming through, angelic. Frankincense and myrrh be the essence, you can smell it. Rocking different color stones, niggas think I'm psychedelic. Asiatics can never be gods, let them tell it. Cosmetically groomed, suede blazer with suede shoes. Smooth, don't have to prove that I paid dues. My track record speaks for itself. You hear the language, the dignity you see me with now. Came in the game with, I hang with imperial nobles, wine Kenobis, light bodies, etherically mobile, spiritual OGs, riding around.
Okay, peace, Moors. I just want to ask everybody here, make sure you go to the website, moorishfest.com. moorishfest.com. It's a beautiful website, Moorish American owned. We have fezzes there. We have large fezzes. We have fezzes that can fit brothers with locks. Make sure you go to moorishfest.com to order your fez. We're shipping them out worldwide. We're shipping them. Just sent some to Canada the other day. Just sent some off to a couple of states today. So we're sending all over the continents, the continental, as well as to other countries as well. So worldwide, moorishfez.com. Okay, peace. Peace, everybody. So for everybody here, just want to get things started. Well, first and foremost, we always rise here, giving the highest praise to the Most High, our Creator, our Father God, Allah. We extend honor to our divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for bringing us our divine creed and nationality so that we may learn to love instead of hate. And we also just want to extend honors out to everything Moorish. Now, for anyone who's new here, you're listening to the True and Living Light Bringer Moors and Americans. Always, I'm your brother, Lloyd Douglas, also known as Sharif Ali. Here at Moors in America, we are uncovering and bringing glorious light to all issues pertinent to the Moorish American paradigm. But that's what we do here on this podcast known as Moors in America. So I hope everyone's having an amazing evening, has had a great day. If you don't mind, please share this broadcast on your favorite social media platform. Share this everywhere. Definitely, I'm asking everybody to help with this information out, because what we're going to do today, we're going to bring a lot of light, a considerable amount of light to the world. We're going to speak about our illustrious prophet. When I say our, I'm speaking from a Moorish American perspective, and this is extremely important because now we're starting to hear other people tell our stories, people who don't know what they're talking about. So it's important always to go to the source and Our source is Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so, yes, I'm actually an official of the Moorish Temple of America in Ohio, Central Ohio. And I will be speaking on this topic today. So we want to share this. And this is for everyone, but especially for us, Moorish Americans. We need to know this. So what we're going to do, don't want to take too much more time. We'll let some more people come in here, but we're going to go ahead and get started, Moors. Don't go anywhere. Everybody, make sure you share it. Relax, grab some popcorn, share this. In other words, grab a friend. Let's go.
I am not a Negro, black, colored, African American. I'm a Moorish American. Peace.
Yeah. Hey, 5 on the right, 2 on the left, man. You know what time it is. Yo. We just Moors in America, soared through the shores and endured criminal acts of war on our character. 7 years after the 4th score, no reward. Shout out to the most courageous, they was jumping over barriers. Where does that compare to you? We come from a place where you scared to visit our area. We come from a place where it's scary for good Samaritans. Heavy luggage we carrying, babies having babies. It's crazy being American. Praise the one and only Allah, there's no comparison. La ilaha illa Allah, body and buried gin. Laughing at you clowns like ha-ha, dodging the Nephilim. Conquer lower self with the high, follow your regimen. Way before they came we were gods and now we specimen. Tried to take the light from our eyes, thank God for Edison. Then they put the wool on our eyes, it's so embarrassing. Now we travel frequently, we should invest in Sheraton. All of us got gold on our bodies whenever we stepping in. Screaming Ramadan, Mubarak, training the flesh again. Wishing we could move as a unit just like the Mexicans. Dodging all the foods with estrogen, synthetic medicines. All sin isn't devilish. Sometimes the decisions that you make come for a better gift. Sometimes when you sin is to relate to all your brethren. Heavenly gates all in our face, we the champions. We live in the sky, we see the angels on the chariots. Waiting on the $20 bill, face a Harriet. I bet you I'ma carry it. I'm in love with music to the point I wanna marry it. But my love for people is greater, so I write messages. Largest spending power, but we still sit at a deficit. Living amongst prejudice, even at our residence. Moors in America, flourishing, excellent. Let's buy up some neighborhoods and groom our own president. Yeah. And I come to you today with all intentions of spreading love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. Okay, so what you see on the screen, we're talking about today our illustrious prophet, speaking about Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Now, as it said in the description for the videos, this is an American prophet. We're discussing the prophethood of Noble Drew Ali, Moorish savior. So we're going to cover this from an unapologetically Moorish point of view, which is very important because, as I said, there are now people from various walks of life beginning to look at what's going on with these so-called black people that are claiming to be Moors, that are claiming to be Moroccans, right? So people are starting to tell our story who have no idea what they're talking about. All right. But what you're going to see in this discourse, this is coming from someone who is actually an official in the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is me. So we're going to discuss the prophet. In this discussion, we'll cover the claim to prophethood from an Islamic standpoint. We're not going to shy away from anything. Some people are scared to cover that. You hear about 3340 in the Quran, the Khatam Al Nabiyin, the seal of the prophets. We're going to talk about all that. I know it causes confusion, even sometimes anger amongst those of foreigners of the Islamic faith, speaking about those in the Arab world. Right. And even those with the foreign mindset. So, as I said, we're not shying away from any topics. We're going to go in. So just to start things off with the bang, Prophet Noble Drew Ali to us is without a doubt he's a prophet. He's a Rasul. He's a messenger. OK, and I'm going to explain why I'm saying that. So for those who aren't familiar with the Islamic viewpoint or with the Arab Islamic viewpoint, we're going to explain that because here's the thing. You're going to automatically assume Islam, Arabic, right? But if you think that you're confining the creator of the universe to one language, to the desert, you're confining the creator to one culture. And it's not like that. Right. Before I came into the temple, many years before I came into the temple, before I even knew about Prophet Noble Drew Ali, personally, I had joined the mosque. Right. My wife and we joined the mosque. And I guess you could say what people would consider Orthodox Islam. I'll tell you why it's not. That's not an accurate description later. But, they push. There's a push for you to learn Arabic. And I understand that. But that's a culture. Right. That's a culture. And that really has nothing to do with Islam. But I'll tell you why. So before I made a distinction between a Rasul and a Nabi. So looking at prophethood from an Islamic point of view, many in Islam view prophethood in two tiers. You have the messengers. So a lot of times, like when you're reading the Quran, especially when it's talking about the Prophet Muhammad, he's referred to as a messenger. The messenger in Arabic would be Rasul, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah. A Rasul is a prophet who brings the law. So you have messengers and prophets. The prophet would be a Nabi. All right. That's the singular form of it. So messengers are those whom Allah gave revelation through an intermediary, an angel. There's a few of them, not a lot. Tradition says there's 124,000 of them. I don't know how you could get that exactly correct number, but still, it's not a lot, especially when you consider how many people have been on the earth. But the task of the messenger, right, is to come to remind the people to stick to Allah's commandments, to get in unison with the Creator. And then you have the second form, which are the prophets. Now, all messengers are prophets, but all prophets or nabis are not messengers. The reason being is because the messengers, the Rasuls, also bring a new book of laws from Allah to each of their own nation. Okay, so the messenger comes with a new book of laws for his people because a messenger has to come from amongst his own people. As it says here in Quran, chapter 16, verse 36. Surah 16, ayat 36. And we certainly sent into every nation a messenger saying, worship Allah and avoid idols. Right? So the messenger is coming to every nation and from amongst those people, but we'll show you how that's in the Quran. So it's in there. The messenger must come from amongst those people, and he's bringing a new book to those people who have strayed away from Allah. Okay, so that's the difference. The prophet, they prophesize, they let you know what's coming, and the messenger also brings the law. Instead of just warning you to get in alignment with the law, they do that, but they also bring the law. Okay, so that's just speaking about the different kinds of prophets. And now, just so that there's no confusion, we're making it clear that Noble Drew Ali is Allah's prophet. He made that clear. He didn't leave any leeway, any other way to interpret that. So for the faithful Muslims in America, he is a Rasul. And why the reason why I say this is because some, even on our side, who would be considered or consider themselves Moorish Americans, may say that that Prophet Noble Drew Ali isn't necessarily a prophet or a prophet of Allah. But you can prove that that's not true just by looking at the words, the way the prophet described himself and what was done. So I'm looking at this questionnaire. There's a literature for Moorish Americans called the 101 Questionnaire. It has 101 questions in it. The first one is, who made you? Allah. He's telling this to a people who had been Christianized, forced into Christianity through colonialism. So European Christians had forced them into Christianity, and the prophet's coming to get them back to Islam. He said, who made you? That's the first question. Why? Well, this is something that's actually in the preamble to the Constitution, where every man's created equal through and with unalienable rights endowed through their creator. Everyone is. All right. But as so-called black people, who's our creator? So the prophet setting it straight. Who made you? Allah. And then just in case there's any confusion, right? Who is Allah? He's not talking about arm, leg, arm, head. He's talking about the Father. Allah is the Father of the universe, meaning he's the creator, meaning that he's omnipresent. Omnipresent means he's everywhere. He's in everything. Omniscient, meaning he knows all. Can we see him? No, meaning we are within his creation. So he's not within the creation, except that he's within each and every one of us, right? Because where's the nearest place we can meet him? In the heart. So we're talking about the creator. And then who is Noble Drew Ali? He is Allah's prophet. So there's no confusion about that. What is a prophet? A prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. What is the duty of a prophet? To save nations from the wrath of Allah. This is actually what's in the Quran is revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. Prophets are to save nations from the wrath of Allah. So he's aligning himself so that it's understood what he's talking about. This is also why he lets it be known that Marcus Garvey was the forerunner to the prophet, just as John the Baptist was to Jesus. Okay. And just in case there's still confusion, in chapter 48 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the reason why we have a Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, as you'll see later on in this discussion, is because the prophet had to come to a people who were in severe error, flagrant error. All right. He came to a people who before him were in flagrant error. That's also in the Quran. And he had to get us right. So within the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have laws. We have divine instructions. And so in chapter 48, the end of time and the fulfilling of the prophecies, it says the last prophet in these days is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath, which is sure to come upon the earth. Once again, you had this connection I was speaking about with John the Baptist being the forerunner to Jesus in those days. In these modern days, there came a forerunner who was prepared divinely by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, okay, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam. And his name is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old time religion and the everlasting gospel to the sons of men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree. Remember, our people had been forced into Christianity, had their names taken from them, had their lineage almost wiped out, at least on paper. All right. And so every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree and return to their own and be one with their Father, God, Allah. All right. And so the reason I was sharing this is because, like I said, you have those even from our side who have their own ideas about it. They'll say that, he's saying that he's a prophet because he went through the Egyptian mystery system. So I do have some quotes up here from Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, who was a professor and expert on ancient cultures, ancient Egyptian culture. And he wrote about the ancient mystery system in Egypt. And he said that you had different degrees. There were 6 orders of Egyptian priests. Okay. And you had an order called the prophets. So this was an order of Egyptian priests. And the prophet was the president of the temple. It has to know the 10 books which are hieratic, and they contain the laws and doctrines concerning the gods and the whole education of the priest. So that makes sense for people to make that connection. But looking at how the prophet described himself, having a forerunner coming to warn the nations, prepared by the great God Allah to bring the true and divine creed of Islam. This is not what he's speaking about, but it makes sense for people to make that connection. So I'm not attacking anyone who thinks that or believes that. Not saying that, oh, you're wrong, there's something wrong with you. No, just making a connection that from his own words, even going into further words from the prophet. Looking at some of our documents from the Moorish literature. This is another document from the Moorish Science Temple of America. And Prophet Drew Ali speaks to the nations. All right. He's saying that he's the prophet. He was sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery, which you have now. You need every one of you who think your condition can be better. All right. So he's speaking about being a prophet sent to his people who's in mental slavery. And prophet warns all Muslims to be read at every meeting. Says this is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Once again, Quranically speaking, this is in alignment with the Quran is revealed to the prophet Muhammad, because it says in there that before the prophet, his people were in flagrant error. That's actually in chapter 3 of the Holy Quran. Going down to a divine prophet for a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways. Remember what I'm saying, because you're going to see this in this discussion. He was sent by the great God Allah to warn his people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to the state of mind, to their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens. Okay. You can actually go and look these documents up on your own if you want to read the whole thing, but just going down a little bit more to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. This is the instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now. He's warning of the wrath which is sure to come. The end of time is drawing near now, right? But the weak can comprehend it not. So says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. Now, going on, prophet warns all Muslims. Once again, you're getting this understanding of what the prophet is here for, what he's coming to tell you. And if you don't believe this, if it's too hard to take on, he gives you the instructions that if you lose confidence, just turn in your card and button, cease wearing your turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. So there's no confusion that he's Allah's prophet. And I'm saying that just looking at what he's done and looking at what a Rasul is for us, Noble Drew Ali is both Nabi and Rasul. Now we're looking at the Quran, looking at chapter 7, verse 35. Says, O children of Adam, if there come to you messengers, remember the messengers of Rasul, if there come to you messengers from among you relating to you my verses, then whoever fears Allah and reforms, there will be no fear concerning them, nor will they grieve. if there come to you messengers from among you, relating to you my verses. Remember, the Rasul must come from among the people. Okay? He must come from among the people. Now, Allah set the precedent for messengers, because this is in the Quran over and over again. This is the first thing that the Arab Muslims will tell you, or that even Muslims or so-called black Muslims here from America that have a foreign mindset. They'll say, this is the first thing they have a problem with. I can't accept you saying that he's a prophet. Well, if you read the Quran, you will see that you are in flagrant error. Okay, there's one verse where you have that verse about the seal of the prophets, which we will get into, because that's actually seen in different ways by different people. Everybody doesn't agree that that means the last of the prophets, even though many Qurans will translate it in English as the last prophet instead of saying the seal of the prophets. Okay, but that's okay. But you can't take that one verse and say that, well, you have at least 6 or 7 verses in the Quran which say that Allah sends a messenger to every people from every nation, even speaking the language of those people. You can't say that Allah is making a mistake or that he's causing confusion. You can't do that. So this is something that we must make sense of, because I know there's a lot of Arab Muslims that don't really understand the Quran. And this is not an attack on you. It's just saying that many of the things that you practice, these are just the mindsets or the ideologies that became most dominant, most popular. And it was pushed for political purposes. And it became what they call Orthodox Islam now. But that doesn't mean that it's true. All right. So you saw in 735, it says the messengers come from among you. But then when you go to 1047, it says, and for every ummah, that's a community or a nation, there's a messenger. When their messenger comes, the matter will be judged between them with justice, and they will not be wrong. That's 1047. Then 14:4, we sent not a messenger except to teach in the language of his own people in order to make things clear to them. Now Allah leaves straying those whom he pleases and guides whom he pleases. And he is exalted in power, full of wisdom. Then go to 1636. It says, for we assuredly sent amongst every people a messenger. We assuredly sent amongst every people a messenger with the command, serve Allah and eschew evil. Of the people were some whom Allah guided and some on whom error became inevitably established. So travel through the earth and see what was the end of those who denied the truth. Going to 1684, remember, O messenger, the day when Allah will raise up from every nation their messenger who was sent to them to give testimony of the faith of those who believed and the rejection of those who disbelieved. Okay, just moving forward to save time, going to chapter 3 in the Quran, verse 164. Allah verily has done a great favor to the believers. He sent a messenger from amongst them who conveys and implements the revelations of Allah. He shows them the way to grow in humanity and teaches them the book and wisdom therein. Before the messenger came to them, they were in flagrant error. Okay, and I know there's some imams or sheiks or foreign Arab Muslims who will say that you don't understand this because you don't speak Arabic, right? And that's what they'll say. And what you have to say in response is, what's the point of translating this into English if we have to learn a foreign language, and not just the language, but a foreign culture? You must understand the little quirks and things about that foreign culture as well. So you must learn. You're telling me that I have to learn a foreign language and a foreign culture to understand what this is really saying? We sent not a messenger except to teach in the language of his own people? That is plain. For we assuredly sent amongst every people a messenger. Assuredly. That word was in there to make sure it's understood. We assuredly sent amongst every people a messenger. We didn't leave anyone out. You can't say, oh, this is the seal, this is it. You don't get one. You so-called black people who have been enslaved, who have had your culture and identity wiped out. You don't get one. You can't do that. It says in here, we assuredly, okay? It says they send one to every nation. It even says in the language of his own people so that they can make things clear to them. There's so many who come here to this country from other places in this country being the United States of America. They come here so that they can enrich themselves. They don't care about the plight that we're going through. But it says in 14:4, we sent not a messenger except to teach in the language of his own people in order to make things clear to them. Now, who was Noble Drew Ali? Where was he born? In the state of North Carolina. He came from amongst us in speaking our language. What is his nationality? Moorish American. What is ours? Moorish American. Why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. He came and reestablished this for us. We are the same. We are the same nation. We didn't even know we were a nation. This is why it's so important to us, and this is why no one can come and tell us anything. All right. How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? By teaching them to be ourselves. What is our religion? Islamism. Is that a new or is that the old time religion? It's the old time religion, meaning we don't have to learn foreign language and culture. We don't have to learn foreign language and culture. Now we can, because of course, any language that you learn, right, it expands your mind. It's amazing. I used to live in Brazil, learn Portuguese. It's amazing, right? But we don't have to do that to get closer to Allah. The nearest place we can meet Allah is in the heart. So nobody can tell us anything, because in the Quran, it says that we assuredly send a messenger to every people, okay? And only to teach in the language of their own people. So the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was born in North Carolina in 1886. He witnessed Jim Crow era. He saw what was going on. Nobody else cares about our plight. These other people that come here to take advantage of the benefits from being in North America, being in the United States of America, they don't care about our plight. This is not an attack on anyone. This is keeping it 100% real, because nobody else is going to keep it 100% real. No one else cares about our plight. One of our own, this man from North Carolina, born in the 1886, right? Coming of age in the early 1900s, the atrocities, the things that he witnessed, he understood our plight. And he brought divine instructions to get us in alignment with our creator. We didn't even know who our creator was. We're in the church, same church that the people who were burning crosses on our lawns, the same church that the KKK is in, right? They're Christians. The KKK is a Christian organization. There's no reason on earth for so-called black people to be Christians. This is why Allah sent us a prophet. This is why it is insane. It is asinine for anyone to even think, to even utter the word, to even open their mouth to disrespect the prophet, to even think that you can tell us that we don't get a prophet. You have lost your mind. But this isn't an attack. This is the truth. And so these aren't insults. We have to speak the truth, but we're not just saying it, we're showing it. So you see in the Quran how it's hypocritical. It doesn't even make sense for someone to say in one verse, this says that there's no more prophets, but it says over and over and over again. Come on, do we have to go over this all over again? No, it says this over and over and over again, that we assuredly send amongst every people a messenger. And that's in English. And the whole Quran's been translated into English. And I promise you, someone who's tripped up on their words, that doesn't know how to respond to this, they'll try to say that you don't understand because you don't speak Arabic. Well, why did you translate it? Why even bother translating it into English if you got to go learn a foreign language and culture to truly understand it? What's the point, right? So you can't forget. You can't conveniently forget that in the Quran, several times it says that for every people we send a messenger, and speaking their own language and understanding their conditions. You don't understand our conditions. if you have a foreign mindset, meaning you're from here, but you've taken on this idea that you have to learn Arabic and that you have to, you have to learn another culture and language in order to truly understand what this Quran is saying. If you believe that, bought into that, you have forgotten your own culture. You've forgotten what you have to do, who you are. You think that you must become an Arab, all right, in order to get closer to Allah. And that's simply not true, right? So in 3340, which is where many foreign Arabs would get caught up, it says that Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets. Allah has full knowledge of everything. Now, we've already covered these several verses where it says that for every nation, there's a messenger, right? Now, for us, from our perspective, the so-called African American, the so-called Black American, Black person, we've been stripped of our nationality and our line of descent. Surely Allah would not forsake our nation. We didn't even see ourselves as a nation, even though there have been, look, the population of so-called African Americans in the early 90s was over 40 million. And then if you go back before that, say you go back 30 years before that, in the 60s, it was 20 million something, right? And so the further back you go, you still have a large amount of us here, enough of us here to be a nation. So we didn't even see ourselves as a nation, right? We were stripped from this, right? Surely Allah would not forsake our nation when it says in the Quran that he would send one to guide them and warn of Allah's wrath. Anyone that doesn't know that Allah's wrath is on America and the world, I don't know what to tell you. It's on. It's on. And so surely Allah would send us one, because that's in the Quran over and over again, and Allah cannot contradict himself. Now, you foreign Muslims may contradict this, and you may not see anything wrong with this, but Allah surely would not contradict himself. So there are different interpretations of that title, Khatam Al Nabiyin, right? Where it says that the Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophets. There's different interpretations of that, but you wouldn't know. All right. But surely Allah makes no mistakes. Man does. Allah cannot, will not contradict the various surahs in there stating he will send a Rasul to each nation. Now, if you look at Ibn Khaldun, he was an Arab scholar of Islam, and he was a historian. He was born in Tunis in 1332, right? So we're talking about nearly 700 years ago. He died in 1406 in Cairo, Egypt. And he said it was wrong to interpret the Khatam, which is the seal, in that verse to mean the last or the end. Okay, and for anyone who wants to go and read this for more, to see the source, that's Muqaddama, Volume 2, page 54. He holds that the Khatam denotes the consumption and completion of a thing, which he further explains by the words authenticity, perfection, and validity. So when a seal is put to a letter, it becomes authentic, it becomes complete. You put the seal on the document to make it authentic, authorized. The seal can be put in the beginning or in the end. Okay, according to him, the Khatam Al Nabiyin would mean the truest, the most perfect of prophets. Right? He came, he authenticated those before him. Okay, not the last in the point of time. It's talking about maybe his status, his place among the prophets. That's one interpretation. So you wouldn't even know, though most people don't even know. There's other ways of looking at this. All right. So once again, this is not an attack, but it just is what it is. Foreign Muslims, those with foreign mindset, they can view that to mean he's the last prophet. But we refuse to, as Moorish American Muslims, because we understand, whether you do or not, that Allah does not contradict himself. He sends a prophet to every nation, and that's why you can find it in the Quran over and over again, right? At least 6 or 7 times. More than likely, you'll find it in other places as well, but it's in there at least a solid 7 times, sorry. So the Khatam in this case implies perfection, right? Authenticated by Allah, or shows his validity. Okay, in one of the sayings, right, from the prophet, the holy prophet Muhammad, he called his uncle Hazrat Abbas the Khatam Al Muhajirin. Okay, all right, and the Muhajirin is referring to the Muhajir, the refugee. So his uncle's a refugee, right? He's not calling his uncle Abbas the last refugee of the whole Muslim world. Okay, but he's using that word, the Khatam, the seal. He's not calling him the last refugee, right? So, and this is from the Prophet Muhammad, or at least from the Hadiths. Also, similar to that case, with the Prophet calling his uncle the Khatam Al Muhajirin, you got Hazrat Ali, who's called the Khatam Al Awliya. All right. The same scholar Ibn Khaldun says this phrase is understood to mean that Ali was a perfect saint. He wasn't the last saint. So that Khatam, that word, that seal, right? It doesn't mean the last. You also have an Arab poet, Hassan bin Wahab, right? His name, he was also called Abu Tamam, Khatamush Shuhada, right? Now, this is referring to him. He's a poet. You got that Khatamush, that Khatam Shuhada on there, and that's not saying that he's the last poet, even though that sounds cool, right? I think there was a group called the Last Poets. So the word Khatam, therefore, is used in these phrases to mean the best, not the last. So the only place where the Khatam is taken to mean the last is in the case of prophethood, even though it contradicts the other surahs. So the mistake now is on the interpretation of man. And everybody wants to roll with it and say, this is Orthodox Islam. Everybody else is, is in the wrong. Everybody else is fraudulent or pseudo. That's not true. If everyone is in the wrong, if everyone is rolling with fallacy, well, I would still rather be the only one who's rolling with truth. We will never say that Allah contradicts himself when in all of these surahs, it says that a messenger is sent to every nation. So we're just going to have to differ on that. And there's no other way around it. We're going to differ on that. And that's very important to understand, because from our perspective, Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought us laws from Allah and returned us to the ways of our ancestors, which is Islam or Islamism. We fell from the ways of civilization and therefore suffered slavery at the hands of the Europeans. They took advantage of the situation and further disconnected us from our roots. So for us, this is of the extreme importance. And there's actually millions of Moorish Americans here in this country. So we have the numbers and we're strong. And if people don't want to respect us, that's okay. For now, eventually you're going to have to. But you can't force a foreign ideology on us, especially when your foreign ideology or foreign mindset for Americans practicing Sunni Islam, for example, right? You can't force that way of thinking on us when we can see and read for ourselves, right? I can read the Quran for myself and I see that Allah sends a messenger to every nation. So you can't tell me nothing, right? And so you have foreign Muslims and those with foreign mindset. They don't understand because of the cultural differences. You're a whole entire ocean away. You have your own issues to deal with. And that's why Allah, right, in his grace, raised one from amongst us. As it says in Surah 3, 164, 735, 1047, 14:4, 1636, and 1684. He raised one from amongst us who was qualified from understanding our specific plight to return, to guide us towards Allah and deliver us from his wrath. For surely we were in flagrant error before he came. And this is also why a foreigner or one with a foreign mindset would not be able to assist us, as they don't even understand our plight, don't even care about our plight. Allah is universal. He can't be limited to one region of the world or even limited to the earth. So surely you would not try to tell some beings on another planet in a whole entirely different dimension or system, that their prophet is not real, because my understanding of this says that he's the seal and the sunnah. Come on, right? You can't do that. That's placing limits on something that's limitless and incomprehensible. But also, we'll go back to that. You say that he is the last prophet of this day and time, right? That's okay, because even from that understanding, it's still showing that there's a limitation in looking at this. It's like, if he's the last prophet, then why do so many of those who consider themselves, kind of arrogantly consider themselves Orthodox Muslims, especially when they're moving in error, why do they believe Jesus is coming back? Why do they believe in the second coming of Christ, the Messiah? Most of us grew up in the church. That's what Christians believe, right? And it's not even stated directly in the Quran. It's kind of alluded to. Some can say that it's indirectly stated. If you really read it, though, that's not really what it's saying. I have some examples below. Verse 40, chapter 43, 61. And indeed, Jesus will be a sign for knowledge of the hour. So be not in doubt of it and follow me. This is a straight path. And then in chapter 4, verse 159, and there is none from the people of the book, but that he will surely believe in Jesus before his death, and that on the day of resurrection, he will be against them a witness. So you have these different views, but for the most part, the majority of Muslims are believing that Jesus is going to return to earth in this Judgment Day event. And he's going to unite everyone as a Muslim. And he's going to fight against the Antichrist and usher in the era of peace, right? By judging justly for 40 years until he dies. Where's that coming from? It doesn't even say all of this in the Quran. So that's going into, different sunnah, different sayings. Come on, man. All right. But even if you believed in that, the second coming of Jesus, it lets you know that most people won't even recognize. Even if you did believe in the second coming of Jesus, you don't even recognize. You won't even recognize him when you see him. Okay. So if you want to say that the Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet sent by Allah, let's go back to the Quran. Right, a few days before his departure from the world, he stood up and he asked the people, have I delivered the message to you? He said this a couple of times. And then when they affirmed that he did, he made Allah a witness that he has completed his duty. Right. And so in chapter 5, verse 3, it says, this day I've perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and have approved for you Islam as a religion. Right. So you want to say that he's the last prophet in the sense that no prophets will follow after him, because there's no need for any other prophets, because Islam has been perfected. It's been completed. So you don't need new additions or subtractions, right? There's no new additions or subtractions necessary until the end of time, right? So you could look at it like that and say, well, the end of time, he's perfected until the end of time. What does the end of time mean? What does that mean? I mean, once again, are we placing a limit on Allah? You really think that time is going to end? Right? You really think that this war of Armageddon is going to come and just time is going to end? What do you think? Like some of the Christians believe in the rapture, everyone's going to come back from the dead or float up to heaven. What are you thinking? Do we really even know? Do you know what the end of time means? Is that confusing? Because the end of time actually refers to the end of an age. The end of an age. Jesus came at the beginning, towards the beginning of the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces. Then several hundred years later, the Prophet Muhammad came, because the people had already gone astray. Then you also had people in a whole other region in Persia, in that area, who were worshiping idols, who were in flagrant error, right? As it says in chapter 3 of the Quran, they were in flagrant error. And so several hundred years after Jesus, another prophet came. This is during the age of Pisces. Okay, so that's that's what's going on, right? During that time period, you are in the age of Pisces. Now, these ages that I'm referring to would be speaking about astrology, right? The age of Aquarius occurs when the sun's location shifts from Pisces to Aquarius. And that's what we're in right now, or what we're entering into. Depends on who you ask, because there's not a set consensus on these dates, because we're talking about long periods of time. So these ages last 2,000 years. So Jesus came 2,000 years ago, right? And what was Jesus represented by? The fish. You see that symbol of the fish applied to Jesus. And they'll say it's because he gave the fish and the loaves of bread to the people. And that's, I guess, cool for the masses. But in reality, it's because he came to prepare the people for the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces. And it's all based on the position of the Earth's rotation, which is called a precession, and the position of the sun as it travels through the zodiac houses, the different zodiac houses. It takes 2,000 years, or around, give or take, 2,000 years to pass through each age. So in this article, it's saying the age of Pisces began in 68 BCE, which, you know, that's not accurate. Nobody, well, there may be some people that knows, but it's hard to guess the exact time. Then they say the age of Aquarius will begin in 2597, right? 2597, right? And these entire precession of all 12 houses of the zodiac lasts 26,000 years, give or take. Now let's go to this. Let's look at this table, which shows us the zodiac. And we go to the age of Pisces. Now, on the other page, it said 68 BCE, but here it says 1 AD. So you can't, nobody knows the exact time it began. All we know, because they'll say Jesus was born in like 32 AD, but they don't even know that. So looking at Pisces, Pisces is over here, and it says 1 AD. So Pisces was 2,000 years ago. Okay? Jesus came, beginning of Pisces, to prepare the people. Muhammad came several hundred years later to get them further along, because the people were still going astray. And then guess what happened? 1886, towards the end of the age of Pisces, a prophet was born in America to prepare us for the age of Aquarius. We are in the age of Aquarius, or entering into the age of Aquarius, and he came. So if the Prophet Muhammad, if you want to stay stuck on that Khatam, meaning the seal, even though I showed all of those examples, right, where the Khatam did not mean the last, even the one where the Prophet Muhammad is talking about his own uncle, right, being the Khatam, the seal of the, you know, the best of the refugees. Okay, so even though we have all those examples, if you want to say he was the last prophet to the end of time, well, he did his thing to the end of time. He came and furthered along that message, that same message that Jesus had, which all prophets do, and he brought the law, and his time is over. The end of time was reached. Pisces is over with. We are now in the age of Aquarius, a new time. And so Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to prepare us for this new age that we are in. Okay, just like going back to that, most of you foreign Muslims believe that Jesus will come back. You wouldn't even recognize Jesus when he came back, because he was born in 1886 in North Carolina, and he's one of the ones that you look down on. So what does the end of time mean, right? We're talking about these different ages. The end of time happened already for the age of Pisces. So the calculations on the age of Aquarius, where it begins, you know, nobody can say for sure. Some astrologers believe the age of Aquarius began in 2012, right? Because the boundary between Pisces and Aquarius reached the vernal equinox. And then some believe it occurred during the great conjunction of 2020, where all these planets are lined up. Jupiter and Saturn met in Aquarius in 2020. And then, I mean, just looking at the last couple of years, like the last 4 years, all these different celestial events were just happening. Every year, there's like 4 or 5 major celestial events. It was a big deal. So we're in the age of Aquarius, whether you like it or not. And the new prophet for this day and age came and y'all didn't even recognize him. But he came and he took the cover off of all the secret organizations. One reason why I wanted to do this video, though, is because I saw a video. There were these guys called the Three Muslims or something. They got a YouTube channel, and they had a guy on there who was Mexican. And he said he was Moorish American, and he wanted to take the Shahada with them. And they were saying that we're pseudo Muslims, like we're not real Muslims. You know, there was another dude. There was this guy who's got a Moorish American channel, and he's interviewing some Arab dude, and the Arab dude was all talking trash about Moorish Americans, and how we see Islam, like we're not real Muslims and everything. And nobody was strong enough in Islam to properly represent and to uphold the Prophet. And so I'm here to uphold the Prophet, because you know, it's important that we understand who we are and how we fit into this. You don't need to go to anyone else for validation. The Prophet took the cover off of all the secret organizations. And when we show that, what he did, now when we see these topics in the news, like in 2020, Trump tells African Americans to understand their history or you will go back to it again. But that was it, right? You didn't get some in-depth understanding of what he's really talking about. But he let you know, hey, you don't understand your history, right? You're going to go back to it again. He's not saying this in the positive, right? You need to know who you really are. And then he, which all the presidents do, he recognized how Morocco was the first nation to actually recognize the United States in 1777. And thus, to pay them back, he recognized their sovereignty over Western Sahara. Now, on one hand, when we're looking at a map of North Africa, that's the northwestern coast of Africa. He recognized Morocco's sovereignty over this area, which was disputed by different countries, right? Different countries saying we own this Western Sahara. Maybe they're even saying that they're their own nation, but Morocco's got it. He recognized their sovereignty over it. And in saying this, though, looking between the lines, he recognized Morocco's sovereignty over the Maghreb al-Aqsa, right? The Maghreb, the Morocco of the far west. He's speaking to us in code. Not saying he's trying to help us, just saying this is being done in code. This is what's really going on. So this is going to be explained in brief what I'm really talking about. Might have to do a whole other video about that to really give insight and understanding into what's really going on. But a lot of things are taking place right in our face. And if you don't know who you are, it means nothing. It just happens. But we're going to connect the dots, because the Prophet led us from desolation, right? From utter darkness into salvation, right? He connected the wires with the higher powers. So real quickly, we're just going to play a game, right? I used to see these puzzles all the time as a child. Where's Waldo? You got Waldo in some scenario like this, all this activity going on, and he's right there, but you can't see him until somebody points it out to you. And this is how the truth is about who we are. We have a huge impact on this entire nation, and maybe even on different people in the world as well. And the truth is right there. It's been right there all this time. People are talking in code about us, and we don't even know it. So you can't see the truth until it's been pointed out to you. This is what the Prophet did, right? So you got all this activity going on. Once again, you can't see Waldo. Maybe now you can see the little circle around him, right? It's been there the whole time, though. You know, it's always been there. So this man from North Carolina, right, was raised from amongst his people, right, and speaking their language so that he could warn his people about the wrath of Allah, which is sure to come, to give us the law so that we can get back in alignment with Allah. And 93 years ago, Prophet Noble Drew Ali actually declared us a nation of people who didn't even see themselves as a nation, right? Because, and the reason, you know, some people may look at this picture and see why they're wearing those funny clothes. You have turbans and fezzes on and cloaks and all of these things, because we are who our ancestors were without doubt or contradiction. It doesn't matter if my ancestors were wearing this thousands of years ago, and in many cases, it was only a couple hundred years ago, because you don't know that the indigenous people here were dressing like this. But You are who your ancestors were. Nobody can take that from you. So it was returned to us. We are connecting ourselves back into who we always have been, but was hidden. So on October 17th, 1928, the first Moorish American recognized in law, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he draped the American flag around a little boy and the Moorish flag around a little girl. Then he announced to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, I have made you a nation within a nation. This allowed us to now focus on ourselves, our own nation, our own goals, right? Irregardless of what's going on around us. So if the United States of America wants to promote promiscuity, right? If they want to promote the LGBTQ agenda, if they want to promote, people being confused about their genders and all of these things, they can't do it. We have our own agenda. If you look at this picture on the chalkboard, it says Moorish School, Philadelphia, PA, right, 1944. And you see all the little girls and boys dressed nicely with their turbans and fezzes on. People in the back, suits, tie, dressed nicely with the Moorish and the American flag. And so it's a Moorish school. So the parade was more than just a show. It was a formal declaration putting the government and the citizens of America on notice that the Moors had risen again in this hemisphere. That was a formal declaration of our nationhood, our independence. And I know for others, they still, even though this should be plain to understand why we needed this, there's some who still don't get it, especially with the foreign mindset. You don't care. Right? Our people back then had a little more class than we do today, right? You see how the women and men are dressed. It's immaculate. We had our own businesses, right? Our own communities. But we were falling fast because we were following after the ways of the European. So this is why it was necessary for the prophet to declare us a nation, right? He effectively declared our independence and established our line of descent. And he's not even mentioned in mainstream society. They don't speak on him at all. That ought to let you know, anytime someone's not spoken about, hidden from you, there must be something to it. They must have been doing something real, something powerful. So this has been hidden the whole time. And once again, Moors, I'm not shying away from this. There's too many out there that won't uphold. They won't defend the prophet. They think that those who don't care about our plight, who have done nothing for us, they think that they need to look to those people for validation. Those people can't tell us that we aren't practicing Islam, especially when in the Quran, what does it say? Over and over again, Allah sent a messenger to every nation from amongst the people and speaking their language. We know as Moorish Americans that Black history starts at slavery. It starts at slavery. We go back so further than that, which I will briefly discuss. They start us off with slavery. This is from PBS, right, talking about slavery and the making of America. They start the timeline for us off at slavery. There's a big mystery about where you came from as so-called African Americans because they just say you came from somewhere in West Africa. This is taken from the African and Black History Twitter page. It says, on this day in 1619, the first Black slaves landed in Jamestown, Virginia. The history of Black America began. Come on, man. And this, for all I know, that Twitter page is ran by so-called Black people. So they're going to start their own history off at slavery. Okay. And that page has around 400,000 followers. So this is where mentally the people are. They think that they began at slavery. This is a problem. Now, there's a reason for this. This was done on paper, legally, but it was also enforced with real weapons and force, meaning the people, their families were broken up, people were being killed, people were being wrongfully imprisoned. You're looking at the Negro Law of South Carolina. The term Negro is defining the term Negro from a legal perspective. It's confined to slave Africans. That's it. It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, which mentions the Egyptians, Moors, and the Negro Asiatics, right? But it's just letting you know it's confined to enslaved Africans. Okay, there's some other things in here too, like in section 2, it says, under this provision, it has been uniformly held that color is prima facie evidence. This means that color, your skin color, is the main evidence that the party bearing the color of a Negro, mulatto, or mestizo is a slave. So that means no matter how light or dark skinned you are a Negro slave. But that same main evidence, prima facie result, does not follow from the Indian color. Why would they say this? Because the so-called Indian had the same color as the so-called Negro, mulatto, or mestizo. So even though that's evidence, prima facie evidence that you are the so-called Indian, they're letting it be known in law that they're flipping it. They're flipping it and making it, that is evidence that you are a Negro and a slave. And this was done in law. And the Negro is conferred to enslave Africans. So we had these black codes, slave codes, Negro laws, Negro acts, right, being passed through the 17 and 1800s. It's not a coincidence that our communities, that we're in a position we're in now. And so just in case, because somebody, especially some foreigner who knows nothing about American history, will say, well, that's old news. No, it's not. Because if you look at Federal Directive 15 and you see how all of the ethnic groups in the Americas are described, you'll see that the so-called Black or African American is the only one who has origins in the Black racial groups of Africa. Everybody else descends from an original people somewhere. Everyone. American Indian, original peoples of North, South, Central America. Asian, original peoples of blah, 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 blah. White, original peoples of Europe, Middle East, North Africa. Right? Everyone is an original people except Black or African American. So they still are, it's still confined to enslaved Africans, the Black racial groups, meaning they're not even human. That's why these people are still out here getting killed. Innocent people sometimes just getting pulled over for a traffic stop and getting killed, and the police don't even get arrested. They didn't kill a human. They just killed someone who descends from the Black racial groups. So this is not old news. This is something that we're still going through. Why are we still going through it? Because many of our people do not follow our prophet. They're trying to do something else. They're trying to do their own thing. So this is not a coincidence. The definition of Black is in alignment with the Negro laws and the Black codes. It's confined to slave Africans, enslaved Africans. That's all you are, is a slave. You start at slavery. There's no other way around this. So all these other so-called Black leaders, they're all skating around this. The same way that all these so-called Black leaders have been skating around this for nearly 100 years now. They all try to act like our prophet didn't exist. They're doing the same thing that these foreigners are doing, the same thing that these Europeans are doing. They're lying. They're acting like he didn't exist because he had the solution, and it's real, and it's not that hard for us to correct this. So what does it mean to be Black or African American? Right? We showed you that it's confined to slaves. You're not even human, you're subhuman. And just to get to the state that we're at now, we had to put our own turbans down. We had to take our own headdress, our own national headdress off and become Christian. Right? Something that the European nations had organized for themselves for political gain, right? So now as Black people, what does it mean being Black? What does it mean? Because the pop culture, the image that's pushed out of Black people, it's not a good one. Right? It's fun being savage, right? If you're Black, because before Prophet Noble Drew Ali came, my people were in flagrant error. And without accepting and recognizing our American prophet, we are still in flagrant error. As it says in the Quran, Surah 3, Ayat 164, Allah verily has done a great favor to the believers. He has sent a messenger from amongst them who conveys and implements the revelations of Allah. He shows them the way to grow in humanity and teaches them the book and wisdom therein. Before the messenger came to them, they were in flagrant error. So we are still in flagrant error, those of us who are not Moorish American Muslims, who do not follow our prophet for real, practicing Islam. The prophet brought this to us without all of the cultural hangups. You must learn to speak Arabic. You must learn this. You must do what was brought to the Persians, right? That was brought to them. We have our own issues now. We are in a new age. That was in the age of Pisces for those people. Now we are in the age of Aquarius. We have issues. We have been removed from the family of humans. We don't even know who we are. So people out here pushing it's fun to be savage. Savage love, right? 21 Savage. He wasn't even from here. This dude's from London or something. But he put on a little thug costume, the little nigga costume, and he made all these songs about killing black people, selling drugs, killing black people, being immoral, right? Sexually promiscuous, doing drugs. That's what it means to be black. Okay? They even get foreigners to promote this mess to us. Pills and automobiles, popping pills, right? Getting flashy cars. What? Come on, man. This thing has 300 million views. This is what people think it means to be black. Rihanna, didn't they tell you I was a savage? Right? She ain't trying to get married. Right? Then putting the clothes out, the lingerie line, savage. Meg Thee Stallion, Doja Cat. They call themselves the B word, bitch. When a bitch is a female dog. It's a female dog, wolf, fox, or otter. And you have a bunch of women, even some women that think they're conscious, running around calling themselves this. Come on. So they bought in, right? The videos, what do you have? Guns. You got guns. You got drugs. You got more guns. Promiscuity, just being sexually immoral. Nasty, right? And you saw the video with Cardi B. She was acting up, being goofy and foul. And then when her little baby came in, she immediately cut that mess out. I mean, she got some sense, but she don't mind promoting it to y'all. So this is what people think it means to be black, to be African American. And this is why it's so important that the prophet came nearly 100 years ago and declared us a nation. And this is why so many black people are starting to realize they're not black. We're having a cultural awakening. We're having a rise in consciousness, a spiritual awakening. This is amazing. If anyone else was going through this, it would be documented. They would be talking about it on Dateline and all of these other shows and putting it in a positive light. But since it's us, they're not even trying to talk bad about it. They don't even want us to catch wind of what's going on. And so it's in our DNA now to get in alignment with our prophet. And that's why you have so many Moors waking up, and so many of them are lost because they don't even know where the salvation is. You can't be savage out here claiming to be a Moor. I mean, you can, but you're still a Negro. You're still a slave. You're a slave to drugs and guns and being a bitch and a nigga and a criminal, a promiscuous drug addict. This is what you can't do that and be a Moor. So you have to follow the prophet. He gave us divine instructions to clean ourselves up, to be better people, right? To do for ourselves. You see this Moorish school, to have our own schools, our own businesses, to be good, law-abiding people, to have class, respect. Nobody else can assist us. Nobody. No foreigners, no people with a foreign mindset. One of our own came to us because we were in flagrant error. And we still are without them. So just in case some people are still not understanding what's really going on here, we're not looking to anyone else. We're not asking anybody else for, to authenticate us we're not looking for that. We don't need you. Nobody can save us. One of our own did it, as it says in the Quran over and over again. One of our own. It has to be one of our own that's speaking our language. Foreign Arab Muslims can't save the black, so-called black community, nor do they want to. And I'm not saying it like there was something wrong with them, like because they're evil. They have their own hypocrisy and issues to deal with. Right? Anyone ever seen the show Rami? I think it comes on HBO or something like that. Right? We're supposed to be the children of Egyptian immigrants and how they're coming up American. Right? They have their own hypocrisy to deal with. They can't do nothing for us. And then in some ways, in many ways, right, in more ways than one, foreign immigrants still benefit off of us being in a state of ignorance. They still benefit off of it because our neighborhoods are wide open for the taking. They can come in, they can open up shop, they can make money off our own inability to gain economic control over our own communities. They benefit from that. Okay? And then you have Arabs here in America. They refer to people in the so-called African American community as abid. In other words, slaves. That means slaves. So they have this derogatory term for us that other so-called black Muslims, right? Here, they hear them use this even in the mosques to describe us. And they're talking about their so-called fellow Muslims. Okay? There's an article you see up here on the right. It says there's a lady, Leah Vernon. She's a Muslim, so-called Black American, never formally studied Arabic, but growing up in Detroit, she learned the word abid, the Arabic plural term for slavery, a derogatory term used to describe African Americans. Sometimes she heard the word while she and her mother were in attendance at predominantly Arab mosque in Detroit's neighboring city of Dearborn. So if you grow up in Detroit, live in Detroit, you already know the dynamics there, right? Detroit is like 80 to 90% chocolate, Asiatic people, so-called black people. Okay, but then you got the suburbs like Dearborn, where it's like almost the opposite. They don't have as many people, but the majority of the population is Arabs. And so you even have them having the nerve to be in our country and then even calling the people who are of the same faith as them, referring to them as slaves. They're not just using it for the so-called niggas, right? We also called niggas to them. We also called slaves. And this isn't attacking Arabs and acting like all Arabs feel like this, but this is real. Why would we cover this up? We can't expect you to help us, and we can't expect your foreign culture and ideals to do anything for us, because this is not saying that Islam can't save us. It's just that Islam as you bring it can't do anything for us. It can't, because the Islam that you bring to this country doesn't stop you from coming here and selling alcohol to our people, right? You have too much hypocrisy and too much of your own issues to deal with for us to see you as authorities in Islam. Right? The Arabic language and culture. Yes, you can be an authority on that, but Allah is not confined to a language or a culture. All right? Alcohol is deemed haram. Right? It's a sin, and it's explicitly mentioned in the Quran in Surah 2:19. They ask you about intoxicants and games of chance. Say, in both of them, there's great sin and means of profit for men, and their sin is greater than their profit. And they ask you as to what they should spend. Say, what you can spare. Thus does Allah make clear to you the communications that you may ponder. So you're playing the game of chance, selling intoxicants to people for profit. There's great profit in it, but the sin is greater than the profit. Right? I understand what this is saying. It's been translated into English. Somebody can't come to me and say, "Oh, you don't understand Arabic. You don't know what it's really saying. Get out of here." But don't translate it then. So the Arabic word for alcohol is kamir, which means to veil. The nature of alcohol is that it dulls the senses and impairs judgment, right? So even at its root, it veils the intellect. And this has social and not just personal effects. Then the Prophet Muhammad taught that there are 7 sins on alcohol. Allah has cursed alcoholic drinks, and the one who drinks it, the one who serves it, the one who sells it, the one who purchases it, the one who squeezes the fruit to produce it, the one for whom it is squeezed, the brewer, the one who carries it, and the one to whom it is carried, right? So this goes on to everyone. Okay, so this means that you know, in Islam you're supposed to promote the sanctity of life and then prohibit things that do damage and harm life. So the selling of alcohol, this is why it's haram. If you've accepted the revelation, you say, you know, la ilaha, you're accepting Allah, right, and His prophet. So it's beyond hypocritical, and it's socially damaging, and it impedes the personal growth of the customers and their ability to return to their best self. It obstructs the path back to the higher self, al-fitrah. So if you're dealing with all of this, right, you cannot come to us now and say that, no, you're not practicing correct Islam. No, you're not practicing correct Islam. As we have seen this intimately from the Europeans. The Christianity that they gave us was given to us to make us better slaves. And the Islam, the version of it that you bring is not pure. You have dirtied it with all of these practices that we see taking place in every city in America. This doesn't mean that every Muslim is doing this. Every Arab Muslim is doing this in America. Of course not. But if you see this taking place in every city, this means that it's okay. It's accepted. As I see you, brother Ali Akbar, as he said in the chat, that's Islam. Once again, just want to say this one more time. This means that you can't come and tell me anything. And this is why we revert back to the Quran and not listening to you, where it says in there 6 times over and over again that Allah sends a prophet, to a messenger, a Rasul, to every nation from amongst them. Nobody else could do this for us. We need some of you Moors to stand up and be strong and be upright. You can't be weak. You can't let other people tell you what you're supposed to be doing. People who have no problem coming and taking advantage of you in your lower state. Okay? You're going to have to stand up. And so that's really what this is for. Even though I'm sure there are some, you know, foreign Arabs listening, and good, great. You should be listening. Okay? This isn't an attack. Why would anyone say this is an attack when I'm just speaking the truth? Well, we can't tell the truth now? No, we're going to tell the truth. We don't care if people get offended, because if you get offended by the truth, you are weak. And we're not going to help you be weak. We're going to help you be stronger. That's love. When you tough love, get stronger, right? We're not going to allow you to do this. So we're going to speak the truth. And once again, this ain't to attack. It's just the truth, right? Well, speaking about the things going on in the Detroit area, since you have a large population of foreign Muslims living there, when you go to Oakland, California, right, you had 2 liquor stores owned by Arab Muslim immigrants that were vandalized. In one incident, men in suits and bow ties confronted the owner, smashed the bottles and refrigerators. They confronted the owners and questioned them. Why would a Muslim-owned store sell alcoholic beverages that's forbidden in Islam? Right? Because the store owner is trying to get mad. They're like, well, why would you try to come and destroy our store? We're just trying to make money. They're like, but this is forbidden in Islam. You can't do this. You can't do this. If you're really going to be a Muslim, well, there's plenty of other ways to make money. You're going to come into a community where the people don't know who they are, where the people are lost, and you're going to sell them liquor and act like it's not a problem. That is a serious problem. Okay? So if you want to go back and look at some of the links for the sources where I had this from, that's going to be in the description for this video. Oh man, I had something saved on here I wanted to share with you, but I cannot remember. But well, we do know, because once again, we don't want to falsely put people up on some pedestal and act like they are greater than they are. There are several instances where the pale-skinned Arabs have made it clear that they do not have any love for those darker skinned, right? Even their fellow Muslims. And there was something in here I wanted to show to you in particular. Oh yeah, speaking about intermarriage, right? So intermarriage for like a one of the pale skinned Arabs with a darker skinned woman was okay. But with the pale skinned female with the darker skinned male, it's haram. We have a hadith quote of Muhammad saying, "Do not bring black into your pedigree." In fact, the Arab word for slave, abid, which we spoke about earlier, became equated with Africans and blacks. And that's why over here in America, they use that as a derogatory term for us, right? The Arabic word for slave is the same as the Arab word for a black African. Okay? And remember that slavery wasn't abolished. Like, what the heck? What is up with this? Right? That's not true Islam. That is not true Islam. You can't come to me and tell me that's okay. So I don't want this to seem like it's something against Arabs. I'm not even going to go into all this stuff, but there's so many instances that just show that you can't tell me nothing. When it comes to Islam, you can't tell us that what we practice is not true Islam. That's just, that's the reality of it. So let's move on. Okay, hang on, Morris. Okay, so moving on. Just remember, it's not a coincidence that black is the only ethnic group. This is from Federal Directive 15, right? Defined by the government. Black is the only one that has origins in the black racial groups. And it says black racial groups of Africa. Everyone else descends from an original people. All right. The Negro law is still in effect. These Negro laws, these black codes, right, that confine us to slavery. Okay. You have books like The Negro Beast or In the Image of God. They disconnected us from the human family. You are out of the line of kinship with our creator, right? You see that they got the European pale skin Adam and Eve, and then they got this depiction of the Negro out there in the dark. Okay. And this was depicted in an image in this book, but this is what you actually had lawmakers discussing this. I'll show you that example. So this is why, once again, just returning to our prophet is so important for us. Okay. The negrification, that's the fact or act of making a Negro, making a people who are now non-descendable. You don't have any line of descent, and you will continue to produce slaves. That's what it means to be black. Just going back to this is why we honor our prophet. Our prophet, this is from chapter 47 in the Quran. If you read this, speaking about our empire, our dominion, our inhabitation extended from Northeast and Southwest Africa across the Great Atlantis, even into the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. This teaching was being brought to a people back in the 20s. That our ancestors have been over here since before the great earthquake which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean, and that our ancestors were the founders and true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. That doesn't mean we have to walk around dressed like this all the time, but you can. You can if you want to, because you are without a doubt or contradiction what your forefathers were. This is what's returned to us. Nobody else cares or wants us to know this. There's even some who definitely don't want us to know this, who are motivated to keep us in the dark. Right? It's one thing to not care. That's fine. But there are some who are motivated to keep us in the dark. This is just a map depicting what it could have possibly looked like with the continents together. The prophet said we've been here since before that earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. And so this is real. This is very real. And there's actually artifacts. We can actually trace ourselves back through time, through the records. Just some images. I'm going to go through this briefly, but there's an image up here of Incan noblemen, right, from Peru, dark-skinned men. And I had a book. I don't have it anymore, but I had a book where they actually tried to say that these noblemen were escaped slaves. And this is the type of tag they always try to put on us. Here's another picture of Incan noblemen, nobility, kings, right? Lima, Peru. Once again, dark brown skin. Just wanted to show that because if you look at the next page, you'll see various depictions of the fez, which is the headdress for men that our prophet returned to us. And then you see an excerpt from the book Queen Moon and the Egyptian Sphinx by what's his name? Le Plongeon, right? And so he's got some quotes from Garcilaso de la Vega, Cieza de Leon, Acosta, and other writers on Peruvian customs and manners. And it informs us that the fringe and tassel of the Yantu, royal headdress of the Incas, was made of fine crimson wool. So you have them wearing this fine crimson, means dark red. Dark red, fine crimson wool. Our fezzes, remember earlier I showed MoorishFest.com. Make sure let me stop real quick. Make sure you go to MoorishFest.com and get your royal headdress, right? The Inca, right? The ancient, and not just anyone, no, the nobility, the noble class, the royal headdress. So the nobles of the Inca people were wearing the Yantu, which was a fez made of fine crimson wool with a tassel. Okay, that's what we wear right now. So this was returned to us. This is who we truly are. And so it doesn't matter where we're at. This is ancient. Nobody else was trying to tell us this. So that's why I'm saying you're here right now. Go to MoorishFest.com. Get your fez that's actually made by Moorish Americans, because for years, Moorish been telling people to go to Lauderer and these other places. Come here, get it from us. This is made out of fine crimson wool with the tassel right there. We've been wearing this for thousands of years, maybe even longer than that. I know one thing, you can't go and ask some Arab foreigner or anyone else where it came from because they don't know. How could they know? And also, they don't care. They're not trying to empower you. This is not an attack. It's time for the truth. There's no more patience for lies. If you're down with lies and you want to shut up the truth, I don't know what to tell you, but get off the planet, because this is the age of Aquarius. It's not going to work anymore. You can't come through, because I've heard so many people try to come through with this hocus pocus, scary mess, trying to, well, you can't say that, and the hadith say this, and blah, blah. Go on somewhere with that mess. Okay? This is the age. We are in a new age. The prophet came to prepare us for this new age. So none of that stuff works anymore. That's for slaves. Once you are a Moorish American, a true Moorish American, once you get your butt in there and get in line with Islam, once you are a Muslim, no one can fool you anymore. You can think for yourself. And that's why when you see the Olmecs with a turban, looks like a turban wrapped around a fez, and you see even the Easter Island heads wearing the fez. You see the ancient Egyptian statues where they have the fez. And then you find out that the Incan royalty wore the fez, fine crimson wool, just like the one you could get from MoorishFest.com, made out of 100% wool. Right? You see this statue down here in the left corner, this huge statue, Easter Island with a fez. Now you can trace yourself through time. Now nobody could tell us anything. This book is like 500 years old. That's on the screen, and then it has a depiction from the European explorers, conquistadors of the indigenous people. I believe this is in Peru, and you see what they're wearing. They have fezzes. They well, not in this picture. They have turbans. I meant to say turbans. And then some even have turbans with feathers in it. And you see the cloaks that they're wearing, the robes. They're dressed just like that picture. It's 100 years old with the prophet. Okay. Oh, went too far back. They're dressed just like this. So the indigenous Americans were over here doing this. The prophet truly is great. He truly is divine. He truly returned us to the ways of our ancestors. We can't overlook this. We can't overlook this. There's an awakening. You have so many of our people starting to realize that they've been here, that they weren't all brought over here on slave ships, and they get stuck at teepees, right? They get stuck at teepees and living in mud huts, not realizing that there were people who came over the Bering Strait who were confined to living in teepees. They lived like that because they were living like vagabonds. They didn't have a permanent home. Okay, we at that point in time, we had pyramids all over, which I'll show you. We had pyramids even here in North America. We had cities. We had running water. We were wearing fezzes and turbans. We had copper. We had stone. We were able to carve out of stone, solid stone, copper, running water, written language, laws, law and order, courts, universities, all of that. So when you wonder who built this is in Peru, Machu Picchu. Who built this? These people did. The same ones who built the pyramids. The same ones that the prophet described when he described our forefathers. Okay? You even have a Stargate there in Peru, Amamaru. This pyramid's in Ohio, Miamisburg. We got the Serpent Mounds there. This pyramid is pretty big in Miamisburg. And you see us on the top over here in the right, and you see these stone slabs over here on the top, like the capstone of it. This pyramid used to be covered in stone slabs. The whole pyramid. The Europeans got here, they took that stuff off, used it for their homes and stuff like that. So it wasn't like, well, it may have been overgrown and covered in grass, but they still excavated it and took the stone off of it. So this was a real pyramid. It wasn't just a dirt mound. It was covered in stone slabs. How many of us knew this? That's another picture of it, right? That's just one example. This is all over the country. It's all over North America, Central and South America. So our ancestors built these pyramids, these temples, universities, libraries. We did it all over the world. We even went into Europe at one point in time and civilized those people. Then you're looking at Bonampak in Central America, Mexico. On the inside, once you get to the top of the pyramid, you go inside the temple. What do you see? Wearing the same type of clothing as the people, the Incan noblemen. You can even see people wearing turbans and even fezzes in these images. And some of them even have dreadlocks and braids. Same people. Just showing this because of the depictions, right? Yeah. So if you understand who you are now, you can trace yourself back through history. Now you'll see why in the 1700s, 1800s, they're making sculptures of the indigenous Americans, and they called them Blackamoor Indians. They even got our hair texture. Okay? This is why they depicted them like that, because that's who the indigenous people are. So this is why we honor our prophet, and nobody else can tell us anything. We even in our unconscious state, in our lower state, are still living this out, still trying to be who we are. We're just doing it from ignorance, doing it from the wrong standpoint, right? We're doing it out of ignorance, but it's in us. So you see the examples of the Moors wearing their turban and fez like our prophet, and then the older Blackamoor statues, which are hundreds of years old, which are priceless. If you want to buy like an original one, these cost thousands and even millions of dollars. And it's like, why would Europeans do this? This is what the so-called Indians actually look like. All right, but speaking to that, once again, those people who lived in the log huts, the mud huts and the teepees, they did not build the pyramids. They will even tell you that. This image on the screen, carved out of stone, it's an old man wearing a fez. It even has a rope tassel. Right, that's Central America, the Olmecs. Okay, so the fez that we wear, right? They'll tell you that it's named for the city in Morocco. Why? Because fezes were being produced there. But the fez actually dates back to ancient Phoenicia and probably even further back than that. All right. And the Phoenicians are so ancient and have such a huge effect on civilization as a whole that even our languages, everything is based off of it, right? Phonics, hooked on phonics, Phoenician, that's where it's coming from. All of this. So the prophet tied us back into who we truly are, the ancient Canaanites, right? So everything that comes out of this, the Mauritanians, the real Jews, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Moabites, Amorites, all of this came out of our ancestry. This is who we truly are. We can't skip over this. The script that you're seeing up here, that was found in Brazil. This is the Phoenician script. And this was actually found on a stone slab, like carved in stone in Brazil in 1872. And it said, "We are children of Canaan from Sidon, from the Eastern Kingdom." Right? Not going to read the rest, but you can look up the book, Mysteries of Ancient America. I'll have the links in the description later. You can go and look that up yourself. Right? So it's also speaking about King Mesa from Moab. And this is found in Brazil. We had the same type things being found here in North America, right? This is found in, I think, New England, right? Which would be like in the upper New York, Connecticut, somewhere around there. No, this was found in New Hampshire, matter of fact, right? So it's a triangular dedication tablet, and it's found in some stone chamber. All right, and the inscription reads from right to left. It says, "To Baal of the Canaanites, Phoenicians." This is in dedication. And then that translation was in Barry Fell's book, America BC. Barry Fell was a Harvard lawyer. A Harvard professor. Okay, so there's no reason for Iberian Punic to be here and for it to be saying "To Baal of the Canaanites." No reason. Right? When you're looking at Punic, right, it's in the Iberian Punic script. When you're looking at Punic, you're going back to Carthage. You're going back to the Phoenicians. All right? You also had the Born Stone here. Once again, carved out of stone. This is found in Massachusetts. This is one of the earliest Phoenician, Moorish. Anytime you see Phoenician, that's Moorish documents pertaining to the rights, possession, and inhabitation of land by blood in the Americas. This describes the annexation of the American continent to the Iberian Peninsula. The Born Stone, look that up. And it says, "By this I take claim," and then it's signed Hanno. Hanno Bay, Hanno Ball. That's the name Hanno, Hanno Bay, Hanno Ball. Hannibal was also the name for a Carthaginian general. Ball translates into bay. That's what we would say in modern times, or that's what Moorish Americans now say. Hannibal, Hanno Bay. Okay, so this said, "By this I take claim," and it was signed Hanno Bay. Once again, that's in Massachusetts. The prophet tied us back in with this, and that's a legal document. You cannot move a marker stone. But as blacks, or as you want to claim, you know, your Cherokee, your Lenape, all of these things, that's wonderful, that's beautiful, but it doesn't really matter unless you are a Moor. You truly know who you are. You predate all of this. The founders of civilization. This is why you'll see more sharing stuff like this, claiming everything. the Al-Moroccan Empire. Why? Because the present Moroccan Empire is right here where we stand. We are experiencing a cultural awakening. We are experiencing a rise in consciousness. And it is phenomenal because no one is trying to assist us in this, trying to help us, trying to teach us, but one of our own that was raised from amongst us and speaking our language. Up here, you see an excerpt from a congressional session. And they're speaking on America and the term and where it really came from. Strange to say, the presiding officer decided in favor of the latter, but even though the theory rejected at this Congress has not much historical support, we may confidently look to the Incas for a better one. America was spelled variously in the first maps and documents as Amaraca, Amerioca, Maraca, Moraca, as well as America. Okay? From Humboldt, we learned that the first settlement of Spaniards on the mainland was at America Pana. The native word Pana was, according to Sir Walter Raleigh, the equivalent of country. Okay? Maraca, Marioca, Maraca, Amaraca. This is what the people here were calling the entire land, not just one specific area. Not just in South America or Central or North America, all throughout the land. So it doesn't really matter if you want to just confine us to the slave trade and pretend that people who were paying the Moors over here in North Africa, they were paying their leaders to keep their people from being kidnapped and sold into slavery, and they were paying them tribute. So you want to believe that they had the capacity to do that, fight that war on that front, and then also enslave and bring everybody over here? I'm not saying they didn't do that to some people, okay? But there's no way they brought all of us over here. But if you want to go with that story and confine us to that, it still would still make us Moors. When you look at this map showing Muhammadan Africa, right? Okay, you see North Africa, they give us West Africa. That's where we all came from. Well, if you're looking at that area, all of this yellow, the area West Africa, you'll see Senegal, you'll see Nigeria, you'll see Ghana, you'll see all of these places that they say that we came from in the yellow. And they're not that far from Morocco Empire and the Barbary states. This is all, matter of fact, the true Berbers from Mauritania, right? If you ask the Ghanaian people, the actual historians who actually know their history, from Ghana, not just the average Ghanaian person. So you ask the historians from Ghana who really know the history of their tribes, they'll let you know that their people migrated to where they're at right now from the land that they now call Mauritania. Okay? They even came from the Atlas Mountains. So either way you put it, that's who we are. But our prophet let us know that we didn't all get brought over here by Europeans because we were over here before the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? The indigenous people over here used to be described in the newspapers as blackamoors. This paper on the left from Ohio, 1853, says, "But Daddy, are you not afraid of the blackamoor wild Indians that live in the woods?" And you go over here on the right. The highest judicial tribunal in the land has decided that the blackamoors, called by the extreme of public curiosity the colored population, are not citizens of the United States. Okay, and then they're calling them Negroes. All right, so the blackamoors were being referred to as Indians. And then you also see them still calling the Negroes blackamoors. This Virginia paper says, in commenting on the decision of the Supreme Court in the Dred Scott case, they have decided that the blackamoors are not citizens of the United States, the colored population, the Negroes. This is who we are, people. This is another newspaper article, old article. I believe this is also from the 1800s. Just speaking again, where do them blackamoor nigger Indians live that I heard about in our own country? The blackamoors. Okay, you'll see this over and over again. This one is speaking about the blackamoor Indian statues, something that a lot of people don't even know about. You had all these statues of the so-called Indian, and he's holding the tobacco or holding the cigars in his hand, and it's a dark-skinned blackamoor. Early in the 18th century, the bust of a blackamoor was largely employed by tobacconists as a sign, and it still survives here and there, till they decided to start destroying it and lightening up the image of the so-called Indian. The blackamoor then divided the honor of announcing the tobacco shop with the red Indian attired in a petticoat of tobacco leaves. Many effigies of blackamoors which were so cumbrous as to constitute a public danger. So this was being used, because this is from London. So here in America, also over in Europe, they had these statues of a Moor, as it says here, as applied not to a Moor. Okay, the blackamoor. And this represented the indigenous Americans. And that's why they were associated with tobacco, because tobacco became the main crop. All right, they even had them with the Indian headdress and everything. But then they started to change it to the so-called red Indian. So you had that lighter complected people who were here. William Penn, who was the founder of Pennsylvania, he encountered the Lenape, the Delaware so-called Moors. That's the actual name, the Delaware Moors, for the indigenous people. He said, of the indigenous people, describing them, of complexion, black, but by design as the gypsies in England. Okay? He also spoke of the Indians here being called Negroes, Moors, and Indians interchangeably. This is one of those statues of the blackamoor Indian, right? Holding the tobacco. And then you have this same image applied to the so-called Negroes. This is from the American Indian statue, the Virginia Historical Society. And this is supposed to be depicting an American Indian. Matter of fact, that might be Powhatan. He was a chief in Virginia. But they had these blackamoor Indian statues. They had to get rid of them. You still can find some of them, right? Also in the book, Ancient and Modern Britons, going again to the description of the so-called Indians in 1676, the native races of New England, right? That's northeastern coast of North America, were spoken of indifferently as Indians and Moors. And our British Indians are also remembered as Moors. They knew about Moors, right? Coming from Europe, Moors had ruled Europe for nearly 800 years. So they indifferently called the Indians Moors. They also called them Negroes. Okay, so Indian was substituted for Moorish. They changed that over. When they came and encountered the people, they're calling them Moors, blackamoors. Then they called them Indians. And then they said anybody with this color is a Negro, period. Right? This quote, though, this is coming from the Peabody Museum of American Archaeology and Ethnology, written in 1888, Harvard University volume. Okay? There's no way around this. This is just speaking on the Negro law again, but it lets you know they snuck that in there, that same color, that same skin color that is evidence that you are the native indigenous people, that is now evidence that you are a Negro. And they define Negroes as enslaved Africans. You come from enslaved Africans. That's it. And so this happened all over. This is in Virginia. I'm just showing some examples because this happened all over the place. You can look this stuff up on your own. It's true. Walter Plecker, right? You would think he had a simple job, just census director, right? He was the developer of Negro and American Indian classification, wiping people out on paper, purposefully misclassification of thousands of so-called Indians. Not that Indian is really any better. How many people knew that Abraham Lincoln represented a Moor in court? Back in the 1800s, his client was accused of being a Negro, which could be a death sentence depending on what you're accused of. He was accused of being a Negro because Negroes couldn't own property. And this person wanted to take it from him. And he won the case by saying that his client His skin may not be as white as ours, but he's not a Negro, though he may be a Moor. And he clarified that he was talking about the Moors because there was a judge in there with the last name Moore. His client is a Moor, but he is not a Negro, and he won the case. So there's so much that's not taught to you. Philip Moore, 1730, sold a parcel of land in Hartford, Connecticut to Captain Seymour. Nothing about the transaction was unusual. This is 1730, except that Philip was a man of African descent whose father and grandfather before him had owned that land. So the land passed out of his hands into this Englishman's hands. But he was a third generation owning it in 1730. This is before the United States of America was formed as a nation. How does this happen if we all come from slaves? How were they free and owning land 3 generations in? Right? You have another example from Massachusetts, 1788. You can look this stuff up on your own. I need to come go through this a little bit more. I see us running over a little bit on time, but I just really wanted to cover this just so that we all know why this is so important, why it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. We know who we are, and we stand on our prophet. We stand on the prophet no matter what. Hang on a second, Morris. Okay, here we go. Okay, just had to take care of something real quick in the chat, but here we are. We're still here. We're looking at this map. You've seen this. You had some time to look over it. Distribution of the barbarous tribes. Barbary. Anytime you're talking about Barbary, you're talking about Moors. Berber, right? The Barbary, the Saracens, the Berbers, the Moors. And so these are the indigenous tribes. They're being described as barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi. And when you go to the southeast, everybody pretty much knows that this is where the so-called African Americans have been for the longest. Okay, but we were all up in here, and they described us as Moors, even though this is a description that would go over most people's heads. And then if you look at the racial hierarchical codes, Moor is in there with the Eastern tribes, right? The Moors of the Americas are the Aboriginal Americans. It don't matter what anyone else says. So it don't matter if you're going off the indigenous people here, or if you want to stick to the slave trade, we're still Moors. Okay. And a lot of people, I've heard people like try to define Moor and say that Moor was a term that the Europeans came up with for black people. Like, get out of here. Don't you know that Moor predates Europeans even being civilized? This is not a knock to anyone of European descent. You know we have to tell the truth here. We can't lie. We have to tell the truth. So just looking up the word, or just looking at the history of Egypt. Egypt was called Tamore. Okay? So Egypt had that word, that root word of Moor in there. Moor, Tamore, the land of the Moors. This is one way of looking at it, right? So if you're looking at this, that's on the screen, it just says the people who migrated across the Mediterranean into Spain, speaking about the Moors who ruled Europe. They were from North Africa, were known as Moors or Moorish. And it says a derogatory name for dark, but that's not what it means, right? They came from Moroccan cities such as Marrakesh, which is land of God, and Mauritania, both located beneath the Atlas mountain range of west of Egypt, right? And so this is explaining how Moor, right, Morocco, Mauritania, the reason why, even maybe why they named these lands with that Moor, that MR root in there, is because at one point in time, they either came from Egypt or they're related to that land. and the people's belief in Meru, Ta Meri, Ta Meru. It may be hard to actually know how it was actually pronounced because we would just see the root, the MR, when you're looking at ancient Egyptian, right? We would just see the MR. So Ta Meri, Ta Meru, we don't know how it's really pronounced, but that root, you'll see that everywhere you had an ancient high civilization. So this is all related. And also, Egypt was a worldwide civilization. So while it was Ta Meru or Ta Meri, you also see that same name in India. As it says here, the Meru name was in India. The Mauryan Empire that first unified the entire Indian subcontinent in 340 BC was named after its emperor, Chandragupta Maurya. In this case, the emperor's name is believed to have originated from Moria or Moria, right? After his presumed homeland on Moor Hill. So this is just one example. You also had you had this Moor root found all over the world, even all the way out into the Pacific Ocean with the Maori people, right? New Zealand. And when you look into their culture, you actually look into their priesthood, they have these vestiges of a culture that it can be found all over the world. So it's all tied in. So you had that Ta Mori or Ta Meru, and it had a dual meaning, the land of Amen Ra and the physical human body. The Moors, right? They're the ones that settled in this area. They're the ones who set up everything, associated with civilization, right? And Moor, right, in ancient Egypt, just that Moor alone, that word, this was a priesthood. This was an ancient priesthood. You had a whole nation of high priests. They had this task of keeping the knowledge of civilization. And so this is ancient. And this actually was spread all around the world. You even see there's a hieroglyph for Moor, right? The title, the High Priest of Anu. So this is something that spread out to other areas. This is why when you go to the ancient Maya over here, Moor meant high priest for the ancient Maya. So this is why you'll see statues over here where they're dressed, wearing the same robes and headdress as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, even the same stance. This is truly powerful what our Prophet brought to us, and we can't expect everyone to appreciate it, respect it, and understand it. We are the lowest. We fell to the lowest depths, and the Prophet came to raise us up to the highest heights. Nobody would have believed that the lowly so-called Negro is descended from the creators, the founders of civilization, right? And over there, the Atlas Mountains, over there in Mauritania, you look in the Greek mythology, you had King Atlas, right? He was the king of Mauritania. This is the one who he was one of the sons of Poseidon, right? And he was the king of Mauritania. He was an Atlantean king. All of that was over there. You see other stuff when you go over to Mauritania as well. It ties it back into something ancient civilization, right? You've got the description, the old description of Atlantis with Plato, with the lands with the rings of water separating them for this island that was like the capital of the kingdom. You got that Eye of the Sahara there too. In Mauritania, the Moors, the high priests. This is all being tied into us. Egypt, this was a worldwide civilization. Just look at the stolen legacy from G.M. James. Remember, he was a professor. He was an expert on history, ancient civilizations. He let it be known in here. The Moors kept up constant contact with Mother Egypt. So while they were ruling Europe, They established caliphates not only at Baghdad and Cordova, but also Cairo and Egypt. Just here, it would be well to mention that all the great leaders of the great religions of antiquity were initiates of the ancient mystery system, right? So it wouldn't matter. Moses, Christ, everyone came through this. And so we've been maintaining that. We fell from our ways. This is why the prophet came to us, to get us back in line. And that's, once again, it's just why nobody could tell us anything. This is why the Europeans had to come here to North America, because Atlantis must rise again here. And this is why you'll see things like the pyramid stone that was found in Ecuador, and you'll notice that it's the same pyramid from the $1 bill. All of this is based off of us, and also us not knowing who we are, right? This great earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean, that our prophet described to us in chapter 47, this same event is described in the Toronto manuscript, which was written by the ancient Mayans or the ancient Olmec people. They described seeing the lands rise and fall, earthquakes, people perishing. They saw it and wrote it down. So now looking back at what Trump said when he told the African Americans to understand their history, or you will go back to it again. And then you're seeing these things. He's recognizing the Morocco's sovereignty over the Maghreb, Alaska. The Morocco of the furthest west is right here. So when the Moors are saying they're right at home in Morocco, they're not joking. All of this is tied into us. Okay? I'm going to end this here. There's so much more we could go into, but we'll just stop on this and just say this is why we respect, honor our prophet. We see our flag has been flown here for the longest. This is from Fort Negro in Florida. Why were Negroes flying an all red flag in 1816? And they were fighting against the Europeans. And they were indigenous to the Americas. None of that makes any sense unless you know who you are. That's why nobody else can tell us anything. This is a depiction of the Yamasees at war. You see them wearing a fez and turban and flying a red flag. Nobody's telling us what's really going on. So somebody turned the lights out. And this is what I was saying, where you actually had delegates in the Virginia House of Delegates, 1832, Henry Berry speaking about how we have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. If we could extinguish their capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on the level with the beasts of the field, and we should be safe. They're speaking about us cutting off the light, right? Cutting off our light so that we can't even conceive of anything else. We will be like the beast of the field. The prophet reconnected us, cut the light on, so that we don't need to go through anyone else, because nobody else is trying to reconnect us. Now we understand what's going on. You don't need to go to anyone else for validation now. That image, these people will tell you it means nothing, but that image is found in the oldest Freemasonic lodge in the world, which is in London. And when you look up at the tapestry at the ceiling, you see our flag. But they'll tell you, no, that's not your flag. That's just a coincidence that it looks like that. Right? Even the rays coming down, the rays of light, they look like folds in the flag. But that's just a coincidence. They'll tell you anything. If you don't know who you are, you can't even conceive of this, right? So they're hiding who you are right here, right in front of you. Everything is built off of us not knowing who we are. Atlantis has to rise again. It has to, but it's only going to rise through us. And this is why people must wear our headdress, must even call themselves Muslims in secret. Right? Their greetings to each other. Assalamu alaikum. Return with alaikum salam. Speaking about the Shriners. They must do this. because the Moors are the true rulers. And if we're not going to be who we are, this dude's Fez, he's a member of the Mystic Order of Veiled Prophets of the Enchanted Realm. It says El Bay on it. Come on, man. What else do you need? What else do you need? Anyone else that can't make the connection or still don't believe this, hey, I don't know what to tell you, right? You know, maybe you want to get the highest medal given to diplomats by the Royal British Queen. I don't want that mess, because when you look at the close-up of her little medallion, it's a fake pale-skinned angel stepping on the Moor. Must keep the Moor down so that they can rule. It's time out for that. That's over with. We're ready to step in and be who we are. We can't do anything else. The prophet unveiled the secrets. Everything has been revealed. We're not going to hide. We're not going to go along with anyone who's hiding. It's over. All we have to do is be who and what we always were. Yes, we were cut off from our illustrious history. Yes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. This is why it's time to stand. We have law. We have divine instructions that protect us, that guarantee our prosperity if we abide by it. The Negro, the Black, the African American, the foundational Black American, the whatever, anything anyone else is coming up with, all that stuff starts as slavery. They have no ancestors, and it's incapable of ancestry. And if you're stuck at the Indian, the Mud Hut, the teepee Indians, you're stuck. You are still, right? You are still a subject and up under someone else because someone else defined those terms. Okay? So we're not here to be mistreated. Yes, we have to pick up our fez and turban, our royal headdress, and return to the ways of our forefathers. Get that Christianity back to the European as it was formed for their earthly salvation. While we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded for our earthly and divine salvation. This is what we're doing. This is what we're about. This is ending right now, but I just wanted to share this and make sure that we all have a thorough understanding of who we truly are as Moorish Americans, why we stand on our prophet, why we will not stand for any disrespect of our prophet. I've seen a lot of foreign Arab Muslims trying to say that you don't practice true Islam and things of that nature. And it's just crazy. It's wild to me because, as I said, as I shared, you can't tell us what true Islam is. You can't. You just can't. And the reason for that is because the Islam that we see being practiced here, while there are some people who on an individual basis, they're doing a great job, that will never erase the fact that in every city here in America, you have Arabs in so-called Black communities, I'll say Asiatic, in our Asiatic communities, selling liquor, selling things that are haram, that are sinful, that they are not supposed to partake in at all. You're not supposed to contribute to other people's downfalls. You're not supposed to look the other way just because they don't know who they are and they are not accepting Islam. You know, it's not all right to be a part of the downfall of someone else. We must hold everyone accountable, including ourselves. This is why I advise all Moorish Americans watching this, if you don't follow the prophet for whatever crazy reason, hopefully it's just out of ignorance, you don't know any better, it's time to get right. Because as long as you're trying to just be savage and act like it's cool, you're just a Negro pretending to be a moron. Because most of y'all don't even have fezzes. Go to MoorishFez.com and get your royal headdress. Get your turban, put it on. Ladies, men, wear your turbans, wear your fezzes. Okay? And I'm saying this because if you are with the savage life, you're just a Negro pretending to be a Moor. That's it. It's about cleaning ourselves up, practicing Islam for real. That's another reason why some would look at us and say, oh, they're not practicing true Islam, because they see us in our low state, and many who don't even follow their prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the American prophet who was born from amongst us and speaking our language. And so on that note, we're going to go ahead and get up out of here because the message has been laid down. And this is something that everybody needs to see, whether you've been knowing you're more for years or you're new to this, or even people outside of our community, so you can know how this is real. We're not insane. This is real. It's realer than anything out here. And so we take this very seriously, and we don't appreciate the disrespect. Some of you foreigners who want to say that we're not real Muslim, you don't even know like what you're doing. There's millions of us. Okay? You can take us for a joke for now, but things are going to change, and they might change and flip quickly. So Morris, the sooner you get it together, the sooner things change. When I say you, I'm speaking to me too. The sooner we get it together, follow our prophet, the sooner we can empower ourselves and live up to our full potential. And on that note, Morris, we are out of here. Everybody watching, make sure you share this, like it, come back, like and share it tomorrow. And if you're looking for the links, they will be in the description by tomorrow. Peace and love, Morris. We out.